Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio.
And welcome to our sub-segment of Sex and the City. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. Anyway, we're on episode 8.
Yes.
And we are sitting with mimosas, ready to go. Drink responsibly if you are so drinking.
Yes.
A, B, if you're not, still be responsible.
Yeah.
Love your life. Enjoy it. If you have 30 minutes, sit with us.
Yes.
And if you want to hear our reactions of these episodes of 1998's delightful Sex and the City. It is over 20 years old, these shows.
I know.
I feel very old.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. Like, I kind of wish I had seen it when it would originally release. I would have been 18, 19. But I feel like, I would have been very jaded by how my life did not look like the Sex and the City ladies.
Yeah. I think that's one of the interesting things about this is there is that kind of fantasy aspect of this whole thing, of their kind of
big lives.
Their lives, their fashion.
Yes. And they're in their 30s at this point. So they are a little ahead of me. But I would have expected to be that instead of in my situation of getting like $29,000 a year as a social worker, living with roommates, trying to figure out my life. But not in love, more so combating trauma. So it's a whole different thing. This is a very privileged look. But sometimes privilege is nice to see so we can kind of escape from our own trauma.
Yeah.
You know? And yes, we are on episode 8. Anney, would you like to do a recap for us?
Yeah, okay. Well, we've talked about monogamy and the defining the relationship as you
DTRs.
Educated me on.
They know. People know.
And exclusivity.
Yeah.
We've talked about single versus married women. We've talked about a lot of friendship stuff and supporting friendship, having sex with 20-year-olds, having oral sex and anal sex, all kinds of sex.
Yes. All the sex. All
the sex.
Specifically.
That makes sense. That makes sense. We've gone all over. We've gone all over and talked about all kinds of things.
All the things. And if you do like this segment, just so you know, we do eventually want to broaden our horizons, is that the words?
Sure.
And bring other people on. We're hoping to have some of your classic people that you've heard on our show before to come in and have their own take in our conversations. But we also eventually would like to have one of you, wonderful listeners, and maybe a friend that you would like to bring along and have a conversation and a watch party with us. So look out on social media as well as listen to.
Yes.
To have yourself entered. It's not exactly a contest, but we can't pick everyone. It would be chaotic.
But we have about 87 episodes left. So there's
several. But so listen out for that. Eventually, we would love to have more people participate, although I do love our conversations, Anney.
Yes.
Okay, so let's go ahead with episode 8 of season 1, which is titled Three's a Crowd.
Yeah.
What do you think this is about?
This has been hard because the description is on the television.
Don't look at it.
And I've tried very hard not to look at it. I haven't, but it's been a test, listeners. I'm imagining after what just happened in the previous episode, which was about exclusivity and monogamy, that is about threesomes. I'm guessing with Carrie and Big after the last one. I'm trying very hard to be, because there's also an image on the screen. Yes, so I'm trying to, in my mind, what I think it is. So I think it's going to be like an expounding on this idea of more than, not a monogamous relationship, something outside of monogamy.
Yes. Also, I have mentioned this episode before as well.
Oh.
And I will go ahead and read the descriptor, because I forgot I wanted to do that. Okay. We're going to bring things in, y'all. We really are. This is why we need the first season, just for us to do trial and error.
Yes.
But it says, Carrie discovers not only that Mr. Big was married before. We talked about that. But that he and his ex participated in a threesome. So you are correct. There is a threesome involved. I mentioned this episode in And Just Like That because I told you we do get introduced to his ex-wives.
That's right.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
Okay.
You, me, and another woman.
Come on.
I'm serious. Charlotte, you have no idea how sexy you are, do you?
Oh, you're so
No idea.
sexy.
It sounds like a weird gaslighting thing. Because he said, my fantasy is threesome with you.
Yeah.
You're
it
so
is.
sexy. You have no idea how sexy you are,
Let's
Charlotte.
explore your sexuality.
But it sounds like
Yeah.
he just wants to have a threesome.
First you start thinking you're hot, then he brings up the threesome thing. Boom, suddenly you're kissing another woman while he beats off.
Please, just make sure that the other woman isn't a friend.
Would you
Yeah.
want a friend or someone random for a threesome?
Yeah.
This conversation.
Yes, I have had this
I think that I
conversation.
feel safer with a friend, with someone I could trust. Like Carrie.
Oh,
So they
gee,
named
I'm
Carrie.
flattered. But I'd go with someone who has a little more experience, like Sam.
Well,
Okay, passes it
thanks,
on
but
to going Sam
there is
because of
something
experience.
sexy about a first-timer like Charlotte.
And then she goes back to Charlotte saying that, something sexy about a first timer.
Oh, great. No, forget about me.
And poor Miranda
No, I would do it with you guys.
is left out.
It's like picking teams for dodgeball all over again.
Maybe she's more your taste.
Stop it.
And he's now trying to find women for their threesome.
Yeah.
That's a shame.
I will say there is a couple that I think was trying hard to get me to be a threesome.
As a bartender, yeah, I had that a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
X-Files fanatic Threesome seeks Scully lookalike for a Brexit
X-Files.
fantasy.
This is what I was talking to you about. The Scully.
It's a Scully.
The Scully reference.
Yes.
That's what I was telling you about when we were talking about Scully and the
Yes.
women around the world, fictional women around the world.
Yeah, so there was a couple, very nerdy.
Theater, and golden showers.
So she talks about being in golden showers. I did not know what that was until way later because they have another episode about it. I'm like, oh, I really pictured a literal golden shower.
Yeah,
I thought she
you were
meant
like
she was-
Scrooge McDuck.
I was like, imagining the shower was made of gold.
Oh,
And they were going to, I thought she was referencing that as like she wanted a rich guy.
yeah,
Did not realize what that was.
yeah, yeah.
And it is fine if that's into you. But like as a naive person, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Assuming I knew.
Right.
I have to interview someone.
About what?
Threesomes. Ever done one?
Sure. Who hasn't?
Really? With who?
My ex-wife.
Uh-oh. He has an
Suddenly,
ex-wife.
my column was the last thing on my mind.
No.
knew?
You were married?
Yeah, I thought I told you.
No. No, you didn't. Charlotte was right. We don't really know the people we sleep with. After all, what did I really know about Mr. Big? Except he had an ex-wife named Barbara who I quickly discovered worked in publishing.
So
My
now
plan was simple.
we're stalking.
I'd pitch her a steamy
Oh,
bonus written
wow.
paperback, which she'd probably reject.
Yeah, I guess this was pre-social media. You got to go to the place.
Yeah,
You got to find them out.
What I'm hearing is that you're still very upset about being sexually rejected by your friends.
Back to the
Let me
therapist.
ask you something.
With Miranda, yes.
Yeah.
Would you do a threesome with me?
I love
I think
so
we need to
okay,
talk about
so the
why
fact that
you're asking
Miranda
me
needs
that.
to ask other people for validation
Yeah.
for about threesome, and she does it with a therapist, and then she does the
Yeah.
head shake
Yeah.
to be
Ooh,
sexy.
Yeah.
It is one of those like when you're trying to be sexy when
Yep.
you're overly trying to be sexy and you're obviously
Mm.
not doing
Mhm.
great.
Yes.
Meaning I've done this. Like I'm being sexy and fall off a stool.
So I guess you couldn't avoid a threesome, because even if you're the only person in the bed, someone has always been there before you.
Hey.
So they were in the middle of having sex, Big and Carrie.
Mm-hmm.
She started imagining the ex-wife, which I've done before. Not the ex-wife, but the ex. And then like
yeah.
it just like, I can't compare. I give up.
Mm-hmm. It is weird. It's one of those things where somebody can be so close to you for so long. They
Yeah.
know you so well.
Yeah.
And then they move on and there was someone else.
Right. And then you start wondering, what is this? Or what was that? Or how do they do the same thing? Was that just me?
Exactly.
What was the turning point?
Mm-hmm.
What went wrong? What went right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you miss them?
Yeah. Are you thinking
about them? Yeah. Do you think about them?
I don't know who you are, but Ken and I love each other very much.
Of course you do.
And we have an unshakable bond, whatever it takes. I'm going to keep this marriage together.
Oh, good for you. Now listen, Ruth, this was a huge mistake. It didn't mean anything. It was just sex.
Well, exactly. And if being sexually adventuresome will keep this marriage together, then I am prepared to join you with him in bed.
So the one thing I did have a problem with with this like sideline, because I'm not gonna lie, maybe I'm too old fashioned when it comes to cheating and hurting an individual and breaking someone's trust. I'm not cool with that.
Mm-hmm.
And so this blasé fair level of Sam being like, yeah, I knew he was married. It's not a big deal. And then having that come back to bite her, in which he wants to be committed to her, Sam, instead of the wife. And the wife is like, I'll do whatever. And Sam just feels inconvenienced by it.
Mm-hmm.
That shit's like, I'm not cool with this. This is not one thing. Because if I was cheated on, and the way they make Ruth sound so pitiful, and it does seem like it's her fault because Sam's a bigger star. And of course, it's supposed to be centered around Sam. It just felt a little disrespectful to the, like any wives in general. Whatever.
Then Charlotte did the unthinkable.
Uh-oh, threesome Charlotte.
Oh, threesome Charlotte.
Oh my God. Oh my God. She winked at me.
The winks?
I need to get out of here.
Did winks ever get you into, yeah, baby, come over?
No.
I need to know if that's a thing, because I feel like I have never been winked at and felt like, yes, daddy, take me.
Yeah, no.
And I'm so sorry I made that phrase.
I mean, I've seen winks that are cute and affectionate, but it's never been like, oh.
I usually wink at my friends to like implicate that, oh, I'm just joking, or this is just a joke or whatever, but never like, hey, sexy, I'm winking at you.
Can I join you?
Oh, woman coming in, asking to join.
She realized that this was her moment. If she was going to take the plunge, it was now or never.
Charlotte says yes.
Wow. Threesome Charlotte.
Awkward sit together.
Yep.
And bypassed.
Yep. Oh.
And Charlotte gets pushed out. And now we see Miranda in a boobalicious dress, loving it.
Hi.
What a relief. Most of the women who answered our ad, well, they were, kind of...
She answered an ad. Craigslist didn't exist at that point, right?
No.
So it was all on
like
newspaper.
Personal ads and newspapers,
I
yeah.
think that's a good way to die. I wonder, does this work? Has any of our listeners used either Craigslist or newspapers to meet up with someone? I know we are all in the age of dating apps.
Right.
But I mean, did this work out? Because people used it. And there's a level of trust. All right. So you got it right. Ish,
yeah.
You didn't score as high as the last time, I would say. But you were in the boat.
Okay. I was in the boat.
You didn't see the affair thing coming. I know. That's hard to predict. So I haven't given you any scores, but...
In a minute, yeah.
Less than last one, if we had a score. But to be fair, yeah, this is a little complicated, over the top. And by the way, the next episode's going to be fun. What did you think about this episode?
Yeah, I was, again, like I could really relate to the exes and always thinking about like,
that's plagues me.
Yeah.
Not only the exes, but the futures. I will go and stalk, still see.
Oh yeah. I'll I don't do that, but I always think of like, when am I going to be invited to the wedding? Am I going to be invited to the wedding? What am I going to do at the wedding? Like,
well, I laugh because recently there was a TikTok video about signs doing specific things, and one of the big signs was like people forgetting you exist and will cut you out, and Libra was the big one, and that is my sign. I was like, yeah, you don't exist to me. If I can help it at any point, I will cut you out, and I think you should not exist. And so seeing that, so I would never be invited to anybody's wedding.
That's funny. You're living my headcanon universe in Star Wars. You're picking and choosing what exists and what doesn't exist. That's funny.
I'm just saying. It's just like, for me, I need you not to exist. And if I can help it, then great. If not, I will find a way to cope, and hopefully we end it in a good route. If not, I'm just going to ignore you.
Yeah, I feel like most of my relationships, I had a pretty good, as sad as it was, I had a pretty good breakup last time. But most of them have ended with like, never again shall I see you. Never
again.
And that was more just why we broke up instead of anything else. But I do think about it. It just feels odd, like I said, to share so much of yourself with somebody and then for them to not be around anymore.
Yeah, I will say, like, for me, part of my fear in being in relationships is when we break up, what can you use against me?
Yeah.
Like, have I told you about these things about my friends, and then you're going to go tell my friends that's what they said about you? Right.
Yeah. I had that conversation with my ex where I was like, I feel like I've given you so much that you could destroy me with. And he said, like, no, I think he was basically saying what you think is a weakness is actually a strength, which was very nice of him. But I remember thinking, like, I've just opened myself and I've shared all this with you and I've been so vulnerable, and now I feel like you could really wreck me if you wanted to.
I mean, that's what friendships could be too. Like, taking something and using it against you and hoping that they wouldn't. And I've had friends who like take my words, twist it, and tell someone else. And I'm like, that's not what I meant. I don't understand what just happened. But we've seen that in many plot points. But it's true too. People can really take that. I've also thought that physically. I'm like, if I wanted to murder you, you were to sleep in your bed, I could.
I like how you're looking at me as you say this.
No, you sleep too lightly.
Yeah.
I could poison you, but that's a whole
I could easily be poisoned.
Yeah, that's a whole different conversation.
We're not having right now. Samantha's plotting my murder.
Look, there are things I'm like, could I destroy you? Yes. Could you destroy me? Yes. We have to figure out how. And who. And if.
I mean, that's the thing, though, is I know we talked about this in a recent episode, but so much of what I think we worry about is us worrying about it. So, like, when my ex said that, when he said, like, I think what you see is a vulnerability is a strength, I think he meant that. But to me, it's a weakness. Like, to me, it feels that way. So I feel like he'll use it that way, even though I don't think.
Hopefully we can trust people better than that. But we know that sociopaths and narcissists exist. And so therefore that's a concern in itself. And we've seen it in like work structures. And those are like, who do you trust? And I've met many people who are like, I do not talk to them because they will use this, this, and this. And I was like, oh, damn, okay. And I'm naive enough to think that that's not a thing. But then I'll watch people, I'm like, you're right. They sure did. So people are so guarded because they've been burned so often in workplace settings that it's kind of, interesting. Yeah. But when it comes to Sex and the City, it's a whole different level. A threesome is a whole different level. And yeah, not that polyamory is not a thing, not that being in an open relationship is not good. And as long as you have communications, it's delightful. But what does it come to when he said, and again, this could be one of those moments of like, yeah, you're being a little closed off, judgmental for more open relationships. They can endear with threesomes and like can do it. But like the old school idea, especially when it's driven by a patriarchal need to dominate women. Yeah. And to say that they have needs that need to be fulfilled. Right. That's the dangerous conversation. Yeah. That's the dangerous portion. And when we see the sexist level of conversation when it comes to that, which is what they play on, they being Sex and the City, which was the very 90s, early 2000s way to be, doesn't excuse it. Right. So culturally, probably not the best in this conversation, but does open up to the fact that he still has a relationship with an ex. Yeah. They're still game playing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that would... I guess they haven't known each other that long, Carrie and Big, but I actually didn't find out my dad had a first wife until like I was in college. Like,
that's the first question I ask. I think as we get older, my assumption is you have been with someone. You may have probably married someone. Tell me about that. Or you've had a long-term relationship with someone.
Yeah.
And up until this relationship, that wasn't me though. So I'm like, well, I guess there could be more of me's. But is there? That's the question.
That's
the question. I end up always hooking up with guys who just freshly got out of long-term relationships.
Yeah.
That is awful.
Yeah. I mean, that's something we should come back and talk about as kind of the rebound.
I was always the rebound. I was always the secondary, it seemed. Really irritated me.
Yeah.
And hit my self-esteem.
Oh, for sure.
Anyway, we're going to keep talking about relationships because that is what Sex and the City does do well, in that it brings conversation.
Yes.
But yeah, let us know what your thoughts are.
Yes, please do. You can email us at stuffmediamomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Instagram at Stuff I Never Told You or on Twitter at MomStuffPodcast. Thanks as always to our super producer, Christina.
Oh, we've never had a talk with her about what her thoughts are. Christina.
Yeah, Christina. And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.